Hello everyone, it's day 117 here at the Academy of Natural Living, 100% raw, and I'm going pretty good actually. So day 117, which is almost 4 months, almost 17 weeks, a little bit over 16 and a half weeks, and yeah, I've got a fair bit to share. So it's been a little bit since my last update, and well, where to start? I have to say that digestive issues often show up in the spine. People who have spinal problems, people who are putting their spine out, a lot of it can come back to digestion and problems with the digestion, especially the lower back. And for me, I always looked after my back really well, did yoga, I trained, did all sorts of training, and I never had a problem with my lower back. But in the last few years, I started to get problems with my lower back. If I was bending over for a long period of time, as I was in my job, always bending over, then by the end of the day I was getting quite sore and stiff. And I have to say that over the last 3 to 4 months, I'm bending over all day in the garden, and I noticed actually, probably several weeks ago, that stiffness, that soreness was lessening. And now, like almost 4 months into my journey of regeneration, and there's barely any pain. I'm bending over all, for several hours in the garden, and working with a shovel, and that pain, that stiffness just isn't there. The back can get fatigued, but that deep pain in the spine itself, in the intervertebral cushions around the nerves, just isn't there. It's like I'm not getting up going, like my back. It's almost like it's freed up. Now I have dropped down, or I did drop down to 53.5 kilos. So that was the lowest I've gone so far. And it's interesting, what happened then was I had a dream. I had a dream where I ate. I had a dream where I ate a big steak, and in the dream, I remember I was on my push bike for some reason. I pedalled home as fast as I could and told my mate, I just had this steak, this awesome steak. Now it's interesting because that's your subconscious communicating to you and telling you a need that the body requires. Now the body might not be saying that it needs a steak, but you could certainly give it to it. But what it's saying is that it needs some protein, in particular, some animal protein. So, and when your body gives you signs like that, it's a good idea to listen. So I did listen. And so that was about 2.5 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago that happened. And so what I did, we got hold of some raw goat's dairy. We know the people, and they look after the goats very well. Otherwise we wouldn't be getting it. Some raw goat's dairy, and we fermented it. So we separated the whey and the curd, so made some cheese. And I started to include that into the diet. So with my lunch, I started with 1 spoonful of whey, just one ordinary dessert spoonful of whey, and 1 of cheese. Started with half a spoon of cheese in my salad in the evening, and I slowly built that up. So I'm having several spoonfuls of whey with lunch, or just before lunch, and I can have anywhere up to 3 spoonfuls of cheese in the salad, and they're not heaped, piled up spoons, just ordinary, fairly flat dessert spoons. Mix it through with the salad. And that's not every day. Some days I'll have a break. But my appetite has really improved, and my digestion is working really well. That pain that I was having down in my descending colon has gone, and I seem to be assimilating more food, and my hunger has really increased, and my energy levels have really come up. And since dropping down to about 53.5 kilos, I'm going back up to, I was close to 55 again. So I've put on a kilo. I put on about 1% of body fat. So I'm about 4.5% body fat. So I put on 1% of body fat, and I put on about a kilo. And the scale as well, they fluctuate a little bit, but I think I put on a reasonable kilo. So you know, it's all going really well, and that's almost 4 months. And the other thing is the pruritis, the burning and the itching that I suffer from or that I did suffer from in the anus, especially when I went to the toilet, it was like burning and it would bleed, is gone. It's almost like the skin around there and the flesh there is like, it's like brand new baby skin, and it, you know, there's no pain there, there's no discomfort. It's almost like I can feel, God, the feeling there is pleasurable, you know, when it used to be painful. So there's some amazing healing happening. And, you know, I think by really taking that load off the body and allowing the body to decrease, I mean, it's using that tissue, that dying, decrepit, diseased tissue up. It's consuming it. And, you know, you're taking in all this other powerful, you know, high energy content, you know, as in high light, solar energy content, foods to build your body. And all those, you know, minerals and vitamins, because it's 100% raw food, fresh, locally grown, organic, full of vitamins and minerals and all those things, and your body's just sucking it up. So it's regenerating. My body is certainly regenerating on this regime. And I will share with you, coming up soon, a little bit more of an analysis on what we've been eating. But I haven't been able to complete that yet, so you're going to have to wait, but it is coming. But what I really wanted to share with you in this video, besides those other things, which are great, is a little bit more about the aliesthetic sense. So the aliesthetic sense, or the aliesthetic taste sense, also known as the aliesthetic taste change, is when your body tells you, you know, what to eat, when, and, you know, and how much you're eating, when to stop. So aliesthetic, so ali from alimentary, and aesthetic meaning beauty or appreciation of sensory. So it's the change in the appreciation of taste you get in your mouth, and it's not just flavor, it's also mouth feel. So when you're eating a food in its natural state, the flavor of the food will change. And let's use oranges for example. Excuse me. Just say you're eating fresh, sun-ripened, tree-ripened navel oranges in season, not artificially grown or anything like that. In that way, the aliesthetic sense works best. So as I'm eating oranges, one day I might eat 5 oranges. The next day, I might be halfway through my 3rd orange, and the flavour in my mouth will change. All of a sudden, instead of being sweet and juicy and nice, it goes bland. And it doesn't feel as good in my mouth. Now that's the aliesthetic taste change, and what it's saying is you've had enough oranges. Now that will happen with every food, and it works best obviously with foods that are in their natural state, that are grown naturally, so not pushed with artificial fertilizers, because they don't ripen correctly even if they are left on the tree. And it also works best with, you know, the simpler your combinations are. But if you've got 100% raw food, and even if you're combining that in a salad, even that will work well, and you should be able to pick, you know, as long as it's not too complex and got all these condiments in there, which you shouldn't, that taste sense will work fairly well, and you should be able to identify things. But if you're finding it hard to identify things, simplify it and try things alone, and let your taste sense tell you. But it will actually change as soon as you've had enough of something. So in that sense, while I'm eating this animal product, this fermented goat's cheese and whey, you've got to pay very close attention to, you know, when you've had enough, and if your body's saying had enough. So you don't keep eating it, because all you're going to do is push your body into an excess, and then you start to suffer from symptoms of toxemia. Now it's interesting, because if I was trying to eat too much before, and I have tried to eat too much before, I'll get this little bit of phlegm in my lungs, which is another sign that the digestive tract is overloaded. But that's not happening anymore with my meals. So I'm eating more, and I'm not getting that sign. So that's another sign that the body is regenerating well and starting to want more foods. So I have to say I'm pretty impressed with how things are going. Now, going back probably 1.5 months, 6 weeks or so, I tried to have some raw dairy again. But you see, being an ex-bodybuilder and raised in a lot of animal products, and especially meat proteins, flesh proteins, you know, I kind of miss it and I want it, and you know, all that type of stuff. So I thought I'd have some. But it was interesting because that night when I went for a swim, the next day I came up with my back so sore. It was almost like I put my spine out. And that's pretty much a pretty sure sign that I'd overdone the animal product. In fact, the body didn't even want it. So actually I didn't have any more after that, and my spine didn't need to be corrected by a chiropractor. It corrected itself in a matter of a day or two, as it always does. So, you know, incorrect diet and eating the wrong thing in the form of the fermented goat's cheese had created a digestive dysbiosis, and my spine had gone out. Self-corrected as soon as I corrected my diet. But going forward a few weeks again, when my weight had decreased even more by another kilo and a half, down to 53.5 kilos, all of a sudden I could literally feel stuff getting pulled out of my body. It's almost like it's getting pulled out of my body, and I'm lying there and you can feel your nervous system working. It's like it's tingling, it's on fire, and you can feel stuff being drawn out. You know, in a couple of days when I was so tired that I just had to lie down. And a lot of people say, well, you're not eating enough. But in actual fact, what the body is doing is healing. Because there are other days when there's plenty of energy and you're eating exactly the same thing. So, you know, the things that people think are true aren't necessarily true. You know, you've got to start listening to your body. So, yeah. You know, now that my body is wanting to rebuild again, it's asking for a little bit of animal product. Now, you know, a lot of vegans might get up in arms saying, well, you're not eating enough fruit. But for some people, they need more than just the fruit. For some people, they need a little bit more. I'm having avocado, I'm having nuts. You know, for me, I've been dependent on animal products pretty much all my life, and meat, you know, to a large degree. So I think I'm doing pretty good having a few spoonfuls of raw fermented goat's dairy, you know, a day at this stage. You know, especially after 3 to 4 months of detoxing. You know, having nothing, being predominantly vegan. So, you know, and you know, vegan might work for some people, but it doesn't work for a hell of a lot of people. And I'm not saying that it's not something that we should aim for, because I do believe that we could quite possibly evolve to a 100% vegan state. But it's going to require some adaptation. And, you know, we've got to be realistic with where we are, because I've seen, and I've literally, Dr. John Fielder and myself have, you know, we've recently been with a staunch vegan who's just had to be admitted to hospital because he wasn't listening to his body and allowed it to deteriorate too far. So, listening to your body. If it's working, great. If it's not working, well, you've got to reassess. And, well, that's a whole different story. But I hope that was helpful. The Aliesthetic Taste Change, or the Aliesthetic Taste Sense. Make sure you listen to it. And, well, I'll see you again shortly. Bye for now.